A big note we got to make, and I know everyone looks forward to the Kentucky men's basketball talk. Trent Noah got up, and everyone's like, okay, Trent Noah has some buddies. So, very notable, the blue jerseys are the guys who are the starters. You look behind them, and you kind of see who's in the blue jerseys. Big Blue Nation, welcome back to the Bluegrass Breakdown, Kentucky Insiders Weekly podcast. I'm Kyle McClelland.
I'm Israel Schill.
And we got a lot to talk about. It's been a bit of a slow week, but we got a lot of good information from the coaches, some of the players. But first, we got to talk about a little NBA action. We had the regular season end, and then playoffs came, and a former Wildcat, I think we all know his name, he took over. Israel, go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, of course, man. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the name that everybody maybe is getting a little sick of hearing at this point when talking about NBA. But what a season for that guy. First of all, earlier became the only Wildcat ever to win Most Valuable Player. Did it in dominant fashion with the Thunder basically walking straight through the West. Now becomes the only Wildcat to win an NBA MVP, Finals MVP, and the scoring title all in 1 year. Extremely impressive season for Shai.
And not only just the first Wildcat, but the first player in 25 years to win the MVP scoring title and NBA Finals MVP. Just the fourth player in NBA history to do so. So pretty historic season. We can list the things off. You got NBA champion, MVP. He won the Western Conference Finals MVP, which the NBA just recently announced, but it's still going to be an accolade going forward. NBA Finals MVP, league leading scorer, all NBA first team, averaged over 30 points per game during the regular season. Insane year for Shai.
Yeah, and on top of just, obviously the offensive impact that he has on the court, people overlook that defensive side he's got to him. Maybe 5 rebounds isn't great for a guy of his size, but still 1.7 steals per game, a block a game. That's amazing to be putting up numbers like that on the defensive side of the ball, especially when you're putting up 33 points a game and 7 assists basically. So,
yeah, he's just, we talked about it, but he plays the game the right way, or wrong way to a lot of people, but he plays the game the right way.
Depends if you call free throw.
Whoa, this is what I'm getting at. He plays so smooth and perfect. It's like he doesn't make mistakes.
No.
My whole life's consistent, he said. Yeah. So it's like everything he does.
That was such a quote, man. That was a great quote.
He just drives in, gets to his spot. He doesn't miss.
Yeah.
It seems if he does miss, it's capitalized, like you said, by a good defensive play, or he's getting to the line the next drive. So it's like it's hard to pick on Shai, man. He had one of the greatest NBA seasons in a while, and you could pin it ever.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. Not to mention, guy's only 26 years old. And that's scary for the league to come for a long time.
And OKC's success, too, having so many draft picks left and still having such a young core with J-Dub and Chet, and Hartenstein's probably going to be there a while. Another Wildcat we got to mention, Cason Wallace got his ring.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
with impact, too. He wasn't just getting that free ring.
You have guys like Caruso, who's the oldest guy on the team, and... how old is Alex Caruso?
Is he 35?
No, he's not.
Dude,
Alex Caruso's
he's probably like 31, 32. Yeah, he's 31.
31 years
31
old.
years
he's
old.
The oldest on the team.
That's ridiculous.
So
not to mention him and Mark Daigneault started their careers basically together in the G League for the Thunder way back.
Put that picture up of Caruso in the G League uniform way back when, before he was a Laker and all that good stuff. But, man, what a year for OKC, especially for Shai Gilgeous and Cason Wallace.
Yeah,
so
what a year to be a
Wildcats.
Wildcat in the NBA regardless. At one point we were looking at, with the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals, those matchups, we were guaranteed to have at least one cat win the finals regardless at one point, which is already an amazing feat, especially saying, how many great players there are in the league. But to have, some guy, a guy who was a great player at Kentucky, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't MVP. I mean, he was MVP of the SEC tournament or whatever, but he wasn't the same level that you're seeing him play at now, and it's really great to see. Obviously, everyone talks about the Kentucky guard is like the prototypical like great player that you can have for the rest of your career, and man, it's staying true for sure.
We're going to keep it on the hardwood, but we're going to go over to the women's side real quick to talk about another 5-star commit for the 2026 class. Kenny Brooks picked up Savvy Swords. She's the number 9 player in the women's basketball recruiting rankings. For the first time in women's basketball history at the University of Kentucky, they have 2 top 10 recruits in one single class.
Yeah, I mean, I am ecstatic. I can't think of any other way to put it for this 2026 team. And I know we have a great season coming up next year with this squad, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later as we got to hear from Kenny Brooks and Tiani and Clara earlier today. But holy man, I mean, this on top of what you're already getting in KK, Kaylin Carroll, she's coming in. You're going to have Madden Greenway come in too. I mean, you're looking at a couple wings come in who are extremely versatile, can score at all levels, absolutely. I mean, great defenders, long, like always in the passing lane. Like, I think that this 2026 team is going to be something to look out for. I'm not going to say, they're going to make a huge deep run. You never know. But the way Kenny Brooks right now is developing his players, it's looking like he's going to do great things with them. Yeah,
I'm excited. Just one, because Kentucky's making some waves over the big dogs of women's basketball. Like, winning a recruiting battle is always good, and there's obviously ways to sway people over from somewhere like Texas Tech or maybe North Carolina, who aren't crazy in women's basketball, but they're there. But beating out UCLA, South Carolina, Notre Dame,
South Carolina, to me is like, I mean, if you're a women's basketball player in high school and you look at, all right, I have an offer from South Carolina, Notre Dame, Kentucky, UCLA, Michigan, and you choose Kentucky
would be fourth or fifth
on my list for sure. I mean, I'm thinking South Carolina, Notre Dame, UCLA, you know what I mean? Definitely above all those three, but the commitment that Swords is going to have, first of all, crazy name. Savvy Swords is like like the dopest
rolls
name.
Off the tongue.
Yeah, it rolls off the tongue, great. But for them to have faith in Kenny Brooks and Kentucky basketball, and after last season, the way that the future is going to be with this women's basketball program in Lexington, it's really awesome to see these younger players kind of buying into that hype now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it kind of speaks to the culture that Kenny Brooks has built at Kentucky in just one short season. So that being said, we'll kind of transition to what he talked about today, because we had some good insight on a lot of things. We got to hear, well, one, I felt horrible asking him a Georgia A&M question.
Right off the bat, first question of the day, man.
Yeah, but we had to.
It's like, hey, Kenny, I love you, but how's Georgia doing?
I know you want to talk about this year's team, but let's dial it back.
Yeah.
But no, he gave a great answer on Georgia, kind of the answer I was expecting him to give, that he was absolutely distraught. I'm pretty sure he said he cried more than Georgia did.
Yeah, he said she called him crying, and about 5 seconds later he was crying and she was consoling him, which I think is hilarious.
So obviously Georgia's recovering from her ACL injury that happened even before the season did. So, hoping good things for her. We got some insight on the Cassidy Rose situation, which I feel like a lot of fans would love to hear about, especially that was a big dramatic thing that went on social media for a while.
Of course, yeah, a lot of angry parents, fans, and everybody in the Kentucky basketball realm was a little bit crazy about that one.
We'll throw that full video up for you viewers to watch what Kenny Brooks had to say in response to the entire Cassidy Rose situation.
Kenny, I know you don't like looking backwards, but we didn't get a chance to speak with you after Cassidy Rowe left the team, and you were pretty silent during that time. Is there anything else you would like to say about that to just kind of put closure to that situation?
I wasn't silent. It was just more of, if you want to get deeper, I want to thank all of the young women for their contributions who are not with our team anymore. I thank each and every one of them for their contributions. If any one of them who they're not here, called me tomorrow and said, hey, can you do this for me? I wouldn't hesitate. And I would do it for them. It's just, this is life, and my responsibility is to make sure that Kentucky women's basketball is positioning themselves to be as good as they can possibly be. And that's what we did. So I wasn't silent, it's just that I just didn't have the opportunity. And I wasn't running, I don't have social media anymore, so don't try to look at me on social media. And my piece is great, and I absolutely love being with these kids.
Another big thing when we're looking at the future of this program is you have Jordan Obie and Dominica Peruva, who Kenny Brooks kind of alluded to. I think people forget about the big secret we have in our back pocket. You have 2 6'1" guards who didn't get to touch the court last year because of their injuries. And, Kentucky got better, but frankly, they're supposed to be really damn good last year.
Yeah.
And I think if Jordan and Dominica were both playing last year and they weren't rotating 6 people and that's it.
Yeah.
Kentucky's deep now, and they have all these transfers coming in. You have Tawny Morgan leading that crew, and then you dive into your bench and you have more guards, more depth.
Yeah.
Kentucky probably has 10 players they could rotate in and out on that court. So that's huge.
Especially last season when they had a starting 5 that was like so consistently amazing. I mean, they realistically saw very little issues with that starting 5 they had last season. They didn't have to dig too deep into the bench, but when they did deep into the bench, bring in maybe Sanaya Tyler off the bench for some buckets, for some energy, for some defense. They have new players who are going to be able to fill in that position and go even deeper. And I think depth is going to be the most important thing that they talk about this year with this Kentucky women's basketball team, because if you have a starting 5 that was as good as they were last season, you're going to have almost all of them returning, and then you're going to have some players who fill in that depth like amazing. And I'm really excited to see where they stand this year, how they do in conference play. And they have a little bit tougher of a non-conference schedule, I think, but it'll be a really good season.
What, if you remember, what did he compare the SEC to?
I believe he said WNBA mini WNBA or something like that.
The SEC is the mini WNBA.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And also said that, Claire and Tiani could have went anywhere they wanted to.
Yeah.
They could have played for the Boston Celtics.
Yeah,
and
he said Celtics, Lakers, whatever. We were laughing about that.
If Kristaps Porzingis and Tiani Key were on a court together, I'd
give
probably
me Tiani, man.
Yeah. But regardless, you wrote in the notes, this team's going to be gross.
Yeah, so I did. I put that on our notes.
I completely agree. This team's going to be gross.
Yeah, I definitely think they're going to be really good. And one thing real quick that I want to touch on before we move on is how quickly Tiani and Clara both said, we didn't even think about leaving.
Oh, yeah.
They were asked, with the talent that you guys displayed last year and some of the better teams, maybe showing some interest, how did you guys feel about that? And both of them immediately kind of leaned forward and said, we weren't going anywhere. We were never going anywhere. Yeah. And, I'm sure for Kentucky fans, that's a great thing to hear. And so really excited once again for this year.
Aside from the women's basketball presser that we got to attend today, we talked to Tawny Beckham and Sean Woods, and we got a reveal of the La Familia bracket for the Lexington Regional.
Yeah.
And they'll be facing off against Stroh Squad, which is Bowling Green's alumni team. And, yeah, that's their first-round matchup. Pretty cool to go to that and just kind of get some insight on how they feel about the squad, talk about some guys. I know we had some late additions that wasn't public until like a day ago.
Yeah.
But it leaked that Khalil Whitney and Archie Goodwin would be joining the team. The roster's complete. We got a bracket out. We know they're playing the winner of the Louisville Regional. Got a lot of news today, Izzy.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, I think it's really interesting. It was actually very surprising to hear how intense that they take this whole thing. And, I believe it was Sean Woods talking about how he looks at a lot of these other squads and none of them do what La Familia does with the community, with scouting, with watching film, with paying attention to what players do. And, they're kind of looking at this like they're a regular college basketball team again, coming right back into Lexington.
Yeah, and that's cool because everything's done different in Lexington already. But when you're anything involved basketball-wise in Lexington's huge.
Yeah.
And I know they had such a good turnout last year. And then hearing Twanny talk about, oh, yeah, we put Willie Colley on the phone with some of the guys.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to recruit. He's like, this is a full-time job. We take it serious. He's like, we're watching film on all these teams. It's like, I would assume if you're playing Bowling Green, like, you're just like, it's Bowling Green.
Yeah, it's like whoever went to the NBA from Bowling Green,
I don't know.
I don't know. That's an interesting. Continue, and I'm going to look that up. Continue, and I'm going to look that up.
Some football guys I know of.
Sure.
But anyways, when the whole bracket was revealed, we'll put it up on the screen, but when the bracket was revealed, he kind of alluded, he's like, none of these guys are cakewalks. None of these guys are walkovers. So it's going to be fun.
I just want to say, Rashawn Holmes, Bowling Green, Nate Thurman.
Nate Thurman.
That's
an old name. Golden State Warrior.
Yeah, that's bless you. Yeah, that's definitely an old one that you don't hear very often. Everybody else is kind of like, is what it is. But those names are definitely good names.
A cool thing to look out for is War Ready is the team below. So Auburn and Kentucky could face off in the second round. That's going to be cool. I want to shout out to Richard's Elite. We had someone diss him in the presser.
In the presser, man.
And I had no idea who they were, but apparently they're out of the United Kingdom. So
really
there's like
cool.
a lot of, uniqueness to TBT. And I think for Lexington's market to be able to grow it, host it, and then also promote a new brand where guys like Ainsley Almanor, who are on the youthful side, no diss to Willie Colley, but he isn't a spring chicken anymore.
Yeah, man.
To get guys like Ainsley, who were just playing last year, being the first addition from Mark Pope's squad, it's really cool. And I'm excited.
I think somebody joked about having him run the point a little bit because he's probably got the freshest legs out of everybody on the team.
But they have a good squad. They have a feisty squad.
Definitely a feisty one.
I'm going to be excited to see a couple more additions from them over the course of this offseason and looking at a future standpoint, just kind of how the brand grows. I think it's slowly going to become like, basketball season, TBT season, football season.
Yeah.
It's just going to repeat and rinse and repeat. And that's cool for BBN.
Yeah, what I'm really excited for, actually, is something that I'm not really sure if Sean Woods was kind of supposed to leak to us, but he kind of did anyways, is that Pope and the Cats are going to be practicing with La Familia during the summer.
I don't think they could really talk about it too
I don't
much,
think they were supposed to talk about it. I looked over and Deb was like, Deb was going like, don't talk about that. But they gave us enough to hear that, at least Ainsley will be back playing against Popes and some of those guys he was on the team with last year, which I think will be cool. But also to see that dynamic, because a lot of these guys on the team are Pope's guys. Cal's guys.
Right.
They're all going to be Cal. Obviously, Sean Woods was Patino, but that was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. But a lot of these guys are from a different culture and a different vibe. So I'm really excited to see how those guys mesh. But also, I think them playing against Pope and this current team that Kentucky has is going to be really cool.
I think it's going to be the same, right? Because obviously Ainsley was last year's team, but hearing Modi talking that offseason presser, just yesterday, talking about I'm from New York, I don't know what a foul is, and then I know Twanny mentioned a couple of guys that are from New York too on the TBT team, and it's just they're going to be physical. If they have to play Louisville again, they're going to beat the Cardinals up, and they're going to hammer them down.
Yeah, and Sean Wood said that Louisville game last year, he felt like he had the adrenaline rush of if it was like a normal Kentucky-Louisville game and the fans were getting into it and the players are getting into it.
Said he hadn't felt it in a decade.
Yes, it's been a while, and I guess that's what that rivalry does, and especially Kentucky basketball and bringing it back around. It's really cool to see. I'm really excited for how TBT is going to play out this year.
A big note we got to make, and I know everyone looks forward to the Kentucky men's basketball talk.
Yes.
There's a video posted. You're welcome to watch it here, but Trent Noah got up, and everyone's like, okay, Trent Noah has some buddies still, you know. He's got that bird up.
It's that 20 pounds of leg muscle, man.
And then you look behind him, and you kind of see who's in the blue jerseys. And you see Otega and Jalen, BG, Mo D. Cam Williams was in a blue jersey. Very notable, the blue jerseys are the guys who are the starters. And I think that's, you know, obviously Jasper's not here yet playing with Team USA, but I think that's a huge note to make that we already see, you know, everyone thought Otega was going to play the 3. And then Jasper or Denzel would be playing the 2.
Yeah, obviously Jalen at the 1.
It's kind of cool to see Cam Williams in that starting spot already, see the confidence that Pope has in him.
Yeah.
And his ability to develop. Kind of makes me wonder, you know, you do that instantly makes your bench so deep.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have Aberdeen and Jasper as your guards coming off. And then Colin.
Man.
Yelovich. Trent.
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on. You just name all of them because this team's deep. And
yeah, it is.
That's why it's such a topic of discussion, because really you could start anyone you wanted to outside of like Jalen and Otega. You could throw anyone there.
Yeah.
I could see a world where Andrei Yelovich starts at power forward just because he's 21 years old. Even though he's
a grown man. Yeah.
Classified as a freshman, but he's a grown man.
He's a grown man.
And I could see a world where JQ, when he's healthy enough, just instantly starting over BG.
Yep.
I could see where BG takes that leap and proves, you know, he ain't getting beat out by some youngin' that's not even 18 years old yet. So
I did want to talk about that. I do think the competition that they're bringing to each other right now, even at such an early stage in the, you know, the bonding process, is kind of one that's like, hey man, like, I get what you're here for, but I'm here for the same thing. Like, if we want to be competitive and fight for this position, let's do it, because you got 2 starting 5s basically on this roster.
Yeah. And,
you know, one of them can start at another school probably. You could send, you know, that whole second starting 5 to another school and bam, there you go.
Yeah.
But when you're Pope and you have all this talent and all this depth in your hands, you want them to fight and, you know, prove themselves to be the one that should be starting.
Right.
And I think that's going to fluctuate throughout the season, of course, because BG obviously now, as Pope said earlier, is kind of taking on that leadership position as, you know, the older guy on the roster, the vet almost. And so it'll be interesting to see, you know, how that depth works, especially with a young guy like Malachi, who's going to come in and try to, you know, size up a little bit, be a bigger body down low. But, you know, they also got Reese Potter, who's going to be another bigger body down there. So it's really interesting to see how it's going to go.
Yeah, I think the point is that somebody's going to get the nail in the coffin, and somebody's going to sit there and stare at the court. I think that's why we saw Travis Perry leave, and why we see some people really protecting Trent Noah's name, because Trent Noah's a guy, and even Malachi and Reese, people are thinking they may not play that much.
Yeah.
So going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but these guys got a fiery side and they got a sweet side.
Yeah,
we saw them visit the UK Children's Hospital last week. We'll end this off with a very sweet and nice slideshow. I believe Otega, Trent, and a couple of other guys visited recently, but most of the team visited. Read the names off there.
Yeah, that first time around, I mean, you can see here we got Denzel, we got Mo, Jalen, Reese, Malachi, we got Braden Hawthorne back there. You know, we got plenty of guys. I'm not sure. I mean, I assume it was, you know, something.
The entire team at one point.
Yeah, I assume it was something Pope really, you know, encouraged the guys to go do as you know, Kentucky basketball, and those guys are basically celebrities in this city, and especially to young kids who look up to them. You know what I mean? And so them coming in and immediately making that positive impact on the community, I'm all for it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I hope this isn't too sensitive, but I can imagine being in that scenario and just like, gosh, man, like I'm fighting for a lot right now at such a young age, and I get goosebumps seeing Otego Way walk into a room
yeah.
and see him just sit down. And it's like, man, like I could not, with all my heart, imagine what that meant to a kid like that.
Absolutely. And I'm, at the end of the day, these guys are here to make an impact on people's lives, regardless of whether they're at Kentucky, at a different school, in the NBA, playing overseas. These guys are trying to make an impact on their own lives, but also help raise other people up. And I think it's awesome to see what they're doing. And I assume, but also hope that they continue these types of activities throughout the year.
Ladies and gentlemen, Big Blue Nation, thank you for watching and listening to another week of the Bluegrass Breakdown. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday at noon for brand new episodes. And make sure to go to our website, kyinsider.com, for all breaking news and brand new stories on everything Kentucky. And also check out our socials at KYInsider on everything to keep up with all your daily Kentucky news. Once again, I've been Kyle McClelland.
And I've been Israel Schill.
And we'll see y'all next week.